everyone and welcome to my studio. My name's Diane and today we're going to be painting some beautiful poppies in watercolour with one very important difference. We're going to be painting them on canvas. Now, I never realised this was possible until I discovered Daniel Smith's Watercolour Ground, which is a kind of white gesso type of stuff that you can paint onto a canvas, a new one or one that's been used before, perhaps a failed painting like this one. And you give your canvas a good coat of this watercolour ground and it immediately becomes a surface that you can paint watercolour on. So having seen this on another YouTube channel, Liz Chaderton is her name, the lady who does this, I thought I had to give this a try and share it with you. I happen to have a tin of this stuff, so I thought, well, let's see how this works. Got out an old canvas that I'd already painted over in white paint because it was a failed oil painting. And I'm just adding water here to this rather old container of Daniel Smith Watercolour Ground to wake it up and get it going again. And I'm thinking, my goodness, if I'd have left this much longer, it would have dried out completely and I wouldn't be able to use it at all. But anyway, it is okay, and I'm mixing it up with water to make a thick paste. I'm using a brush here that I wouldn't use for painting with watercolour because it's just not appropriate really. This is a brush that I think I got when I was doing some what do you call it? Chalk painting. Annie Sloan, that's it. Annie Sloaning I was doing a couple of years ago. I did a whole bunch of that. And this is a brush I acquired at that time. So I'm putting this ground on fairly thickly. This is only the second time I've done this. I did another painting similar, which I'll show you later, one of my hairs, and I did that first to see whether it would work at all, because I have to say I was a little bit skeptical as to whether or not this would actually be worth doing, whether it would be worth going to all the trouble of preparing the ground like this, and whether you wouldn't be better off just using acrylics. But my reservations were completely unfounded, as it turned out, and I wonder whether you will agree when you've watched this process, and maybe you might even want to give it a try yourself. I was quite surprised how it all worked out. So I've painted the whole thing. I'm going to go around the edges as well, just to make sure that I've got the whole thing covered. And I'm sure I'm going to make mistakes because, as I say, this is the first time I've done it, and I don't expect to get it right first time, but we're going to give it a try. So when I've done this, when I've covered it all with the ground, it doesn't take very long to dry, but Liz says in her book that it's a good idea to let it dry overnight, just to be on the safe side. And I'm sure she's right about that. I'll put a link to her book in the description below here, and you might want to go over and have a look at some of her videos as well on her channel. What's it called? Painting watercolour on canvas, I think, or watercolour painting on canvas. I think that's what it's called. So anyway, there we are, pretty much finished with the preparation, and I will let that dry and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so now my canvas is dry and I'm going to sketch in my design, which is a composition of poppies. I thought that would be a nice, bright and easy painting to do. So I'm using a pencil here, it's coloured pencil, and I'm just going to have a look and see which type of pencil it was. Okay, this was a Conte pastel pencil that I'm using here, and it worked really well actually. Liz says that if you use graphite pencils, they can be a bit of a problem as they leave marks and you can't really erase them very easily. And she said use a magic eraser to take off any pencil marks. Well, I don't have one of those, so I thought I would have a go at using something different to draw with. So I used this pastel pencil, and it was absolutely fine because I could see what I was drawing, but by the time I put all the watercolour on, it just kind of blended in and didn't cause a problem. I have to apologise now at this particular moment in time for the absolutely dreadful quality of the video. when my daughter comes to process this, she'll have a fit and she will tell me off, no doubt. But I just wanted to get this up because I thought it would be quite exciting to show you how this whole process goes, and rather than starting all over again and waiting another couple of days before I was able to get it up for you, I thought we would, perhaps you would forgive me for the fact that I had the camera the wrong way round. I don't know, I'm getting old. Anyway, quick sketch, nothing very complicated. I've just indicated the outlines of the poppies. I've popped in a few buds and some stems, and I'm going to wing it basically when I start with the painting. I'm not going to plan anything for this one. This is an absolute beginner's tryout. Okay, so I have mixed up some cobalt blue with a little bit of transparent yellow, and this is where my sort of, what would you call it, split personality is going to come into play, because I have done a lot of oil painting and I've done a lot of watercolour, and here I am painting watercolour onto an oil support, which is a little bit kind of schizophrenic in a way. So my natural tendency was to pick up an oil brush, which I've done. This is a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 inch flat, and I'm putting the background in first, and I'm using kind of fairly flat, straight, quick blocking in strokes to put the background in. I'm painting round the poppies, so I'm doing some negative painting, and as I move across the canvas, I'm going from a bluish tone to a yellowish tone, so increasing the amount of yellow in the mix that I'm using. And then as I go down, and I'm sorry that part of this is missing, but I'll try to describe what I'm doing. As I go down, I'm going to be adding in a little bit of violet, so that we have a kind of violet corner down the bottom right, a yellowish corner top right, that's where the sun's coming from, blue on the left, and then a little bit greenish on the left-hand bottom. And just to give it a bit of variety. So there comes the violet coming in there. And I feel very bad about the fact that you can't see the whole picture. But you're only missing, well, I don't know, about a sixth of the thing. It's not as much as it looks, actually, to be quite honest. So you get the message. And I will do more of these because I found this quite liberating. And I think that this is an absolute antidote to the problems that some watercolourists encounter with paper. I don't know what it is about a sheet of paper. Perhaps it's because it's so fragile and it seems so precious, and it's, gosh, is it ever expensive these days. I'm really lucky, I have to say I am very lucky, because I have quite a large stock of paper that I've had for a very long time, and some of it is quite old, and I kind of inherited that. So I haven't had to buy paper for a long time, but I was looking through the Great Art Catalogue the other day, and I nearly had a heart attack when I saw that one sheet of handmade paper from Arches, one sheet, they want 66 euros for, and that's with a 25% discount. I nearly passed out, to be quite honest. I couldn't believe it. I won't be using handmade paper in any great hurry. You could practically, I don't know what to say. It's absolutely insane. So that is very close to being $66. It's the same, and it's also very close to being £66. Nuts, isn't it? Isn't that just nuts? Anyhow, so because paper is so expensive and sometimes it behaves really badly and it can be very disappointing, I think that we tend to get a little bit kind of nervous about what we're doing and very inhibited and so on and so forth. And so somehow painting on an old canvas that was sitting on the shelf gathering dust, literally, for the last 3 years, what can you lose? So I've mixed up this is cadmium red, and I've mixed it up fairly thick. This is quite an intense colour. I've made it quite thick, but you'll see what I'm going to do at the end, why I have to do it quite thick, so it won't stay like that. and I'm going to use the same colour on all of the poppies, and I'm going to add also in some yellow, either quinacridone gold or transparent yellow or cadmium yellow, anything like that will do, just to give a bit of variety. And I'm making the front part of the poppy much more intense, trying to imply that there's a bit more light in the back petals of the poppy. And so I'm going to do that to all of these. Still using the same quite large brush. I will check what size it is, and I'll put that in the description below. I'm going to also add some alizarin crimson to the red to make it a bit more varied, a bit more shadowy down the bottom there, just trying to kind of vary everything a little bit. Now I'm just putting in the red there for the buds. There's another one up there that you can't quite see. Yeah, and the paint is going on quite well. I think I might have missed some areas when I put the Daniel Smith Watercolor Ground paste on, and I think the paint is going to bead a little bit there. And these are the sorts of things that you find out when you first start using a new method. But that doesn't matter, because this is a demonstration and it's going to be quite fun. Doesn't matter if it's got a few gaps in it, does it? But where I managed to get the ground on properly, the paint's going on beautifully, and the slight, what do you call it, the slight spring in the surface, which you always get with canvas, is really nice to paint on. It's got a completely different feel to painting on watercolour paper. Absolutely, totally different sort of experience. And as I say, very liberating. And the excitement comes from not knowing how it's going to behave, really. You just don't really know quite what's going to happen. There's more than one way of doing this. I was watching Liz painting one of her cows on one of her videos, and she uses a completely different method to me. She puts the paint on much, I would think from the way it looked, as if she puts it on much more lightly, much thinner washes, I think. And I would try that as well myself, and I would suggest you try different techniques if you do give this a go. Because obviously there's more than one way of, as my dad used to say, there's more than one way of killing a cat, and least said about that, the better. No, that was just a joke. That was just something we used to say in London. Don't take any notice of me. Okay, so I've got the basic coat of red on all the poppies, including the one you can't quite see, which is just a bud. And now I'm wondering what to do next. I have no plan. I'm waiting for inspiration to strike. So I've swapped to my large round brush now, and we'll see how that works on this new surface. I've picked up some Winsor green mixed with blue, and I'm just sketching in some indications of leaves and some stems, and giving the little buds a bit of a hat there, and the curvy stem that they have. These poppy flowers are a bit like daffodils. They always have a curve to their necks like that. And that's working fine. That brush is also working perfectly well on this surface. No problem there. And actually it's quite sensitive. It's reacting just as you would expect it to react on paper, if not better, actually. Because this, with this ground on it, the canvas is relatively smooth. It probably doesn't even have as much tooth as normal cold pressed paper. So I'm just randomly picking up some more blues and some more violets to indicate something remotely resembling poppy leaves, and just building it up really as I go along, trying to get the colours to work together. Put a bit more green up the top here. And I decided that it needed a little bit more interest, so I thought it would be a nice idea to put some dark purpley flowers in that gap there in the middle. So I've just dropped in some, that would be Winsor violet and blue probably, or maybe red mixed together there. I'm not quite sure exactly what colour that would be, but basically Winsor violet. And I've dropped in some phthalo blue and black mixed together for the centres of the poppies, and I can see that they're going quite light, so I'm going to have to darken them up. And I was just reflecting there on the fact that probably the best way to do that is going to go all mixed media, and I will probably use my my watercolour pencil, my black graphite watercolour graphite pencil from Staedtler Karat Aquarell, which I love. I like that pencil. Seems to suit my style. So I'll do that, but not quite yet. Now I'm adding some more sunshine to the poppies, adding some of my favourite colour, quinacridone gold, which is very useful, I find. It blends with everything. Most other colours on your palette will benefit from being associated with a little bit of quinacridone gold. It doesn't clash with anything really. It does wonderful things with cobalt blue, makes wonderful greens, makes wonderful browns if you mix it with violet. It's wonderful. I really like that colour. I use it a lot. Not neat out of the tube, really, not so much, but mixed with, well, I do that too, but it's an absolutely fantastic mixer. Like tonic water or vodka. It's a great mixer. So, what do we think of it so far? If I was doing a watercolour on paper at this point, I would be thinking about doing some spatter or doing some calligraphy or something like that. But I'm not going to do that on this because I'm not sure that that would work. But what I am going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of lifting off, and so where I just used the brush there at the top, on the top flower, to move out a bit of dark that I put there that it turned out I didn't want, I noticed that I can lift some of the colour off of the canvas, leaving a really nice variation in tone, and giving some nice lines and definition to the shape of the petals. So I'm probably going to do quite a bit of that on this painting because I like the effect it gives. It brings a lot of light into the whole thing. And that's something you can do lifting out on paper, but it's never as dramatic as it evidently is on canvas. And now I've got my, my watercolour pencil, and I'm going in and really strengthening the centres of the poppies with this fantastic black pencil, which melts beautifully into water, and it loves the texture of the canvas and is doing a really good job where I need it to be really intensely dark. So that's great. A little bit there on some of the stems, and you could go mad with that, but I have to try to restrain myself, don't get carried away, you know, otherwise you'd spoil it. I'm glad I put this in the wrong position on the camera because that means I'm going to have to do it again, doesn't it? So I'll have another go at this painting, and I'll do another video, and you'll be able to see the whole thing better as well. And I'll also try to correct the other problem, which was the fact that I hadn't quite got the watercolour ground in place completely. But yeah, this, you know, you find these things out as you go along, don't you? I do recommend you give this a go though if you've got anything like an experimental or an experimental bone in your body. You should give this a go because it's fun. And you can buy really cheap canvases from these shops on the high street, or you can get them online, really cheap canvases, and I'm sure they would work fine for this. You don't need, this one's linen actually, this canvas, it's a linen canvas, and that's why I was a bit disappointed that the painting I did on it originally didn't work out, but I did keep it because, you know, you never know, do you? And it would never have ever occurred to me that I would at one point in time paint on it in watercolour. Acrylic, yes, maybe. I might have been thinking when I painted over it in white, oh, one day I'll do an acrylic on here, but no, I don't need to do acrylic. I don't really like acrylic very much because it dries too quickly, and I've lost an awful lot of brushes to acrylic. I always forget to wash them out because I'm a bit sloppy in that field. But no, acrylic is not as subtle either. I don't think that the colours that you get with acrylic are in any way as subtle as these watercolour colours are. And so yeah, anyway, getting towards the end of my experiment here, I'm just going to drop a little bit more blue in the top left-hand corner there and down the side, just to contain the picture into the canvas. And then we're probably going to let it dry. I might have a little alteration there. I think I've got too much there, so we'll just break that up and make that a little less ugly. And yeah, I was thinking also this is a kind of technique that you could use on an easel for. You might want to stand up to do this. It would be even more freeing, because sitting down to do painting, in fact I was standing up when I did this, sitting down to do a painting like this is again a little bit inhibiting. Another couple of touches of the pencil there, and we're coming towards the end. So I hope you enjoyed watching this. It's completely different, but trust me, believe me, this is really watercolour. This is watercolour painting on canvas, and it's great. I love it. I'm going to do more of this. I'm not going to give up with the paper, don't worry about that, it's a completely different experience, but this is the kind of thing that can really give you a boost. And we need, for goodness sake, a boost in this horrible time that we're all living through. And in any minute now, I'm going to move that camera over. There we go, that's the whole picture. So thank you very much for being with me this evening. I hope you enjoyed that. Do let me know what you think of this technique. I'd be very interested to know what it makes you feel or think. And don't be shy, do please comment on the video when you've watched it. So looking forward to hearing from you, and more of this tomorrow hopefully. And I'll just say, give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, check the description below for information about the book, Painting Watercolour on Canvas. And yeah, I will see you again soon. Thanks very much, and bye for now. Bye bye.